Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription. Let's get started.
When you're going through a merger as an owner, if a target company, okay, I'm going to be merging into this company. Now, these are deals which are very close wrap deals. All right. Now, as a buyer, as an acquirer, from your experience, what can the firms do pre-close to gauge cultural fit or risk? Maybe even before the LOI. How can they do that? They cannot just walk into the office because they're going to be the new bosses.
Yeah, they need to go visit the target and they need to talk to people at least 3 levels below the C-suite, at least 3 levels, if not more, to get a sense of what the culture is, how people work, what's the expectation, right? I've seen companies where they publish their values on posters and they put it on every wall in the entire office building, right? What you need to do when you're doing the walkthrough is see if people actually live those values when you're talking to them. Do they really do it? Most of the time, the answer is no, right? That's not how we do things around here, kind of thing, right?
I like it.
And so, that's to me, the only way to really figure it out is to go talk to people, observe, right? If it's a manufacturer, go in the factory, observe what's going on the shift. How efficient are they? What are the stats, right? In other words, how many orders come in, how many orders go out, et cetera, right? I mean, you got to look at numbers.
Welcome back to Accounting M&A Insider. I'm your host Saul, and today we are going beyond the term sheet. Because let's face it, everybody loves to talk about deal structures, multiples, and synergies, but the real make or break moment in any acquisition doesn't happen in the boardroom. It happens after the ink dries, when people, culture, and communication collide. My guest today is Tony Benedict, a transformative executive with deep experience across healthcare, manufacturing, and professional services. He's seen more integrations than most of us have seen balance sheets, and is also the author of an upcoming book on post merger leadership. Tony, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me, Saul. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Tony, you led transformations across industries, from large scale healthcare systems to accounting adjacent service companies. So, what has brought you into the world of post merger integration?
Great question. So, it just kind of happened by accident. I was recruited into healthcare out of professional consulting services for a large company.
Right.
And I didn't know at the time, but the company I was working for was a portfolio company for Blackstone. Okay. And so we were buying bankrupt hospitals in metropolitan areas, turning them around and then operating. And so when I first got recruited, we were about 12 hospitals, and we acquired about 28 hospitals in about 18 months. So talk about moving at 100 miles an hour. And so really, I would say I learned M&A integration from that experience and really, really liked doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was around, to me, some of the smartest people in the industry at the time. and learned a lot from them. And
Nice.
so when you're a private company, but you're a portfolio company for private equity, it's
Yeah.
almost like you're a public company,
Yeah.
except private equity is a lot tougher than the Wall Street crowd, way
Yeah.
tougher.
Way tougher.
Um, they don't have they have zero tolerance for poor performance um, overall, and I would say especially with executives that take too long to get results.
Yeah.
And so that environment was a great environment to learn in because you had to learn fast, you had to get things done quickly, and move on to the next thing,
Yeah.
so forth and so forth. And so I really like the environment. Um, and that's really what I would say lit a fire in my belly for just that kind of work.
All right. Fantastic. Well, and what types of deals do you typically find yourselves called into? Is it more private equity backed consolidations, or is it portfolio?
I've done
Yeah.
quite a few. They're portfolio companies of private equity firms, so
Right. Right.
it's not like private equity is the one who calls me. It's the portfolio company of that
Of
PE
that
firm that's
acquisition.
calling me, which
Right.
is good. I mean, it's almost the same thing. Most of the I don't want to get into private equity culture per se, but most PE firms have an expectation that the CEO that they hire is they're gonna do what the PE firm wants.
Yeah.
And so if the CEO doesn't really have the experience, the deep experience, then they will hire it, and that's how I get brought
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Um, and so uh, once I'm brought in, it's I would say it's primarily middle market, right? I
Right.
mean, it's not like the Pfizer's of the world are calling me, right? They're not.
Yeah.
Um, it's really middle market. I would say um, 300 million in acquisition value up to 5, 6, 7 billion. So
Right.
that kind of um, window of market cap, private market cap
Right.
as well is what I really work in. And I would say that it's not any different in the Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 world. It's just that they sort of your McKinseys and BCGs kind of have the market cornered in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. True.
Um, although I have consulted to those firms um, through expert networks
Yeah.
because you get a lot of the 27-year-old Ivy League MBAs that don't have experience. They're
Yes.
smart, but they don't have any experience, so they need help, especially with all of the operational
Yeah.
issues that come up when you're doing integration. Sorry,
True.
that's my dog.
Okay. No worries.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, I'm having a new HVAC system put in the house, and the dog is in my office because he won't leave them alone. So sorry.
Absolutely
You'll
okay
have
in
to
that
cut that
scenario.
out in your final interview.
No, I'd rather keep it. I want it to remain as
Yeah.
natural as possible, right?
Um,
Right.
so yeah, mostly middle market.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, a lot of times, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of the time, the PE firm uh, picked up the acquisition through maybe an investment bank or their BD people are
Yeah.
out there sort of drumming up the
Yeah.
business. And
Yeah.
that's how they target who they're going to acquire.
Yeah. 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 All
And
right.
if it's done through an investment bank, they really don't do what I would consider a good 100-day plan,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
mean, I was going to talk to you about that because,
Yeah. So from an accounting standpoint, I mean, this sounds really negative, but I would say it's reflective of reality is they do a lot of back of the envelope synergy projects where, if you do this, this, and this, and reduce inventory, you'll improve working capital, blah, 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 right? But they're really not out there walking the floor in the factory, or they're not going into departments and having conversations. They're not even analyzing sort of what I would consider the business model, right? In other words, how much of your business do you do in-house versus how much are you outsourcing? And
Right.
so when you get into healthcare, most of it's in-source, right? They have an IT department, they have
Yeah.
a HR department. They might outsource
Maybe the
revenue,
billing. Yeah.
but most of them have their own departments, right?
True. True.
They might outsource coding,
Yeah.
they might outsource HIMS, but I would say most of them have their own internal departments. But if you go, let's say, to pharma, you're really dealing with sales organizations in the U.S., and their R&D might be split between the U.S. and outside the U.S. And then a lot of their supply chain now is outside the U.S., right? They're getting their API raw materials from India or China, and those processes are done in those countries,
Yeah.
and then they ship it to, let's say, a manufacturer in another country who
Yeah.
manufactures the final product before it gets shipped to a warehouse in the United States, right?
True.
So so what is that business model you have versus the target, right? And how do you match that up? And a lot of that work is not done pre M&A. So
All right.
before they sign the deal, they're not doing that, right? They're not really getting into the nuts and bolts of what does the business model look like? How much is insourced, outsourced, um,
True.
et
True.
cetera.
Well,
Um,
I always say that, the first 90 days, right, after the deal is like the hangover after a champagne, right? Because so
yeah.
like that's when you really find out if it's a marriage or a merger, right?
Do you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of MyCPE 1 to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
So
Well, I would say that's true, and you find that a lot of what goes on in the first 90 to 100 days, um, to somebody like me, I can see the obvious, right? But to someone who doesn't do it on a routine basis, or has done it once or twice, maybe, um, they're not seeing all the red flags, right? Especially the people side, right? The different cultures, the conflict. A lot of senior execs aren't even aware of the conflict within their own company. And so
yeah,
when they acquire another company,
yeah,
um, there's, I always hear terms like, well, we're a merger of equals and our cultures are very similar and blah, blah. Couldn't be farther from the truth. I've never seen that.
yeah,
There's a lot of lip service there, but I really haven't seen it. The reality of it is most of the time the cultures are very, very different. You have um, different kinds of values within the company. So, for example, in one pharma acquisition, um, the company that was acquired, the owner was the founder, right? And the whole culture was based on his personality. He hired who he liked, et cetera, and who kissed his butt and blah blah blah, right? But if you're not privy to that, when you're acquiring that company and you're thinking, well, we're just going to make them like us, you've got a lot to learn about
yeah.
what's going to happen in the first 6 months.
True.
And
True.
I think I might have mentioned to you prior to this conversation. I was involved in an integration where 80% of the target company, the employees left.
Oh,
They just left, right?
so What
Over the
was wrong
course
there?
of 3 months, the attrition was just devastating, right? Um, and what do, right? People freak out. People
Yeah.
get stressed out because they're picking up the work of the people that are supposed to be their cohorts, and they're really taking on another person's job because they left the company. And
Oh,
that's stressful, right? I mean, I
so
had people, um, mostly, this isn't sexist, but mostly the women on any given day, somebody be crying. Rightfully so. They were hugely stressed out. The guys were just cursing like banshees, right? But you have to deal with that. What do? Right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, in a lot of cases, the HR department, if they're a weak HR department, you've got bigger problems because you need to get people hired and trained and in the company, not crawling, not walking, but they need to come in running, right?
yeah.
Because you don't have time. You've got to focus on keeping the business going, getting product out to customers, et cetera. And so, there's just a lot of things that, and maybe it's just my experience where I always get these integrations that aren't going well. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the ones that are real simple, where it's just a financial acquisition and, you know, um, we're going to lay everybody off and we're just going to absorb you or whatever, right?
Wow.
Those are pretty simple. I mean, those happen, but
Those
the
happen?
acquisitions tend to be
I'm
smaller
shocked.
companies, right?
I'm
They're
shocked you're
smaller
saying this.
companies.
That like the financial acquisitions wherein they're acquiring and they're actually saying that we're going to lay everybody off and they're okay with it. Whoa,
Right.
that's uh, that's shocking.
Yeah. Software acquisitions, software as a service acquisitions, like right now, you have a lot of bigger companies acquiring smaller companies, especially in the AI space, where
Yeah,
it's a consolidation play, right? You're going to have three, four players, and that's it. I
yeah,
don't care how many there are now; it doesn't matter. When
yeah,
it's all over, you'll have three or four, and you're really buying brain power and coders,
yeah.
right? Um, Everything else is not relevant, right? Because you should already have people to deploy,
Yeah.
right, the solution. So do you need more people to deploy? Maybe a couple, but you don't need small armies, right?
Ironically, especially when you're an AI company. It's
Yeah,
just
right. So,
makes
and with what's going on with AI, a lot of that work now is going the way of AI, right? I mean, how many
yeah,
people do you really need?
yeah,
I mean, I track that just as a curious concern of mine.
yeah,
And the layoffs, um, where AI has been brought into companies, has been tested, and the companies have rolled it out, they're generating value. Those companies are laying off quite a few, right? They're keeping some, but they're laying off a lot. Most of the AI projects right now are just royal failures. About 70%, 80% are royal failures because they're just approaching it all wrong.
yeah.
Again, what's your business model? What are you really trying to do? Are you bringing AI in because some consultant said if you don't do it, you're going to go out of business?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? I mean, that's
yeah,
not how to approach it. You should have more of a strategy of why am I doing it? Where am I going to do it?
yeah.
What's my expectation for results and how am I going to measure it? And
True.
you don't see those conversations, right? Where you
Yeah,
do, they're having success, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, but like I mean, like just to pivoting back because AI is a very interesting topic. But why we stay course on this. I want to talk to you about that 80% with attrition company. Like, I really want to know what went
sure.
wrong. But before that, this is and I've seen this. I've seen a lot of people say this that culture is kind of like one of the most overlooked part of integration, right? And I'm not sure, why is it that in a world full of due diligence checklists, culture still gets treated like an afterthought?
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
Again, because I think when you work with investment bankers, that's not part of what they do in the due diligence process, right? They're looking for quality of earnings. They go through the books. They go through intellectual property, patents. The typical, right?
They're looking at it from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, right. Well, what am I buying? Right. Well, I'm buying all these patents. These are the financials. We got to take the $100 million yacht out of the books that the owner bought, blah, 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 whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they're, and I worked in investment banking for a short stint. I didn't like it. I thought it was very boring, but I always heard the putting lipstick on a pig comment. And I have to say, there's some truth to that, right? They're just looking to sell it for the highest dollar to get their commission. And when the papers are signed, the money's wired and they're done, right? And then the real work starts for the company that did the buying. And that's where it all, the rubber hits the road.
That's where the rubber hits the road, and then people call Tony.
Well, and then, like I said, culture was never discussed. People management was never discussed.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've learned over time is that if you don't have a strong HR department, and the company you're acquiring doesn't, you are so behind the eight ball. Because let's say you go in and you start seeing cultural issues, right?
Yeah.
And it starts affecting performance.
Yeah.
And then you start having attrition.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, well, we need to worry about retention, employee retention. And at executive levels, they do retention agreements and they give a lot of money away, but those aren't the people that matter. It's the people doing the work, right?
True.
And so if you don't have a real savvy HR department that can manage performance and help people, help with communication, really work on the integration of corporate values and things like that, and roll it out in a way that people understand. Like, what does this mean to me? I come into work, and what does it all mean to me? What do I need to do so that I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be productive, right? And a good HR department really matters. And I will say that in the course of my career in M&A, I've only worked within one company where the senior vice president of HR was the best I've ever worked with, ever.
Wow.
The guy was on top of everything, very well read, very hands-on, had no problem rolling up his sleeves.
Yeah.
That is so rare out there.
Yeah.
And there's others like that, but they're not in the majority, they're in the minority. And
True.
so that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is
I
a
would
big
say that's probably everything. And you're dealing with culture from day one all the way through to I would say the next 18 to 24 months, because that's where all the crap's going to happen. And you're either going to go south on the acquisition, or you're going to be successful, and it's going to take you anywhere from 18 to 24 months, again, depending on the size, right?
True.
But in the middle market, it's 18 to 24. You could do it faster.
Yeah.
If you have a good HR department, if you have senior execs that are of the type where they want to know what they need to do. Tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to do it. I want to get this done, right?
Yeah.
Those types of CEOs and COOs, those people are great to work with. If you don't have that, it's tough, right? You have a lot of, I used to call it, this is my own term, but I used to call it management by osmosis, which is basically those types of executives think that if I think it hard enough, it's just going to happen. Or they tell their underlings, fix it, make it go away,
And it'll
right?
go
And if
away.
they don't know what to do, right, what are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. They're just going to push it down to the next level, and you have this osmosis happening, but nothing's really getting done, right?
Well,
Um,
to quote you on that, the company
yeah.
example that you said, wherein there was an 80% attrition, was management by osmosis the reason for the 80% attrition?
So in that situation, the target company they bought was the founder, right?
Right.
And this was a generic pharmaceutical company, and again, business models, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the target company was basically a sales organization for an offshore manufacturer based in India.
Yeah.
So they made the products, and this company marketed and sold them in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
All the supply chain distribution was done through
Offshore.
third party logistics, right? They had outsourced everything.
Nice.
So they had finance, supply chain planning, like here's how much we should make, and they would send it over to India and they would make it and ship it over. And it would go to the 3PL, and the 3PL would distribute it to the wholesalers, the CVS's and the Walgreens of the world. That was the target company. The acquiring company used outsourced manufacturing. They had about 35 manufacturers they used. Most of them were US based and Eastern Europe.
Right.
Okay. And they had their own warehouse in the US. They didn't use third party logistics. And their supply chain planning organization was in the corporate office. And so you had two completely different business models. And I would say night and day cultures, right? The target company, the founder was an Indian guy who had, you know, uh, really good, strong relationships with the Indian manufacturer, right? And so that culture is a culture of in and of itself. If you're
Yeah.
not familiar with that culture, it's like getting splashed with cold water in the face, right?
Yeah.
And the company that was acquiring was all U.S. based, right? Um, Not a lot of diversity, but they had some diversity, but never dealt with India or the India culture.
Right.
And so it was like oil and water from day one.
I got
So
it.
when I got the call, I got there um, 9 months post close.
Oh.
So attrition started 3 months post close. So it closed in December previous year. By March, 80% of the people in the target company were gone.
Wow.
They started doing retention agreements for certain people to stick around, and they were doing, half-assed work and taking the money, right? Um, and so uh, the board of the company that hired me, um, the chairman of the board fired the entire C-suite prior to me getting there. So they had missed customer order shipments,
Yeah.
and revenue was going down.
Yeah.
And this chairman just fired the whole C-suite and brought in a bunch of new people. So they had to play catch up on what the heck was going on, right? And they're hiring people without really hiring for talent. They're just hiring people to put warm bodies in chairs. And so they made a lot of bad hires. So by the time I got there, it was heading south very quickly, and it
Mhm.
became a turnaround situation,
Right.
which we ended up doing. But decisions had to be made,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then another a private equity firm came in, and they made sweeping wholesale changes beyond what we had already done. Right.
Nice. Okay. It was
Um,
necessary for preserving the business. In fact, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
the reason why I'm talking to you about this is because, I know your experience was more into the different industries, but, you know, like accounting industry, the accounting CPA firms, all these industries, relationship driven industries, very human centric. And that's why, like this key point, and it's not just because, I'm talking about accounting, but even for the other industries, irrespective. The irony is that, the acquirers, they would often spend months modeling synergies down to the decimal, but almost zero time modeling morale, and it's costly. And
Sure.
like you rightly pointed out, there's research from PwC as well that shows that nearly 70% of the M&A deals, they fail to achieve that intended value, largely due to the cultural and human capital issues.
Right.
So,
Well,
you know,
if you're not going and visiting the target and walking around and talking to people, you're not getting a sense of anything, right?
is that
You
something you think
maybe
we should
maybe you're
notice?
validating your numbers that you did in your office, right?
Yeah.
But you're not really getting a sense of the gestalt of the company, which is the culture. Yeah.
Now, this is very tricky, all right? Because when you're going through a merger as an owner, if a target company, okay, I'm going to be merging into this company. Now, these are deals which are very close wrap deals, all right? Now, as a buyer, as an acquirer, from your experience, what can the firms do pre-close to gauge cultural fit or risk? Maybe even before the LIC. How can they do that? They cannot just walk into the office because they're going to be the new bosses.
Yeah, they need to go visit the target, and they need to talk to people at least three levels below the C-suite, at least three levels, if not more,
Interesting.
to get a sense of um, what the culture is, how people work, what's the expectation, right? Uh, I've seen companies where they publish their values on posters, and they put it on every wall in the entire office building, right? Um, what you need to do when you're doing the walkthrough is see if people actually live those values when you're talking to them. Do they really do it? Most of the time, the answer is no.
Oh,
Right?
that's
That's not how we do things around here, kind of thing, right?
I like it.
And so um, that's to me the only way to really figure it out is to go talk to people, observe, right? If it's a manufacturer, go in the factory, observe what's going on the shift. How efficient are they?
Yeah.
What are the stats, right? In other words, how many orders come in, how many orders go out, et cetera, right? I mean, you got to look at numbers and see what they're pushing through on a daily basis and get turnovers, right?
Mhm.
And then watch people and talk to people. Ask them what their biggest challenges are.
Mm.
That's
Interesting.
never really done.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. All very valid things, So, we already talked about, like how, what happens when we bring private equity into the mix. So I'm not going to be touching on that because, but you worked with a lot of private equity backed businesses, right? So, when private equity comes in, there's always a tension between spreadsheets and psychology, right?
Sure.
Because when EBITDA and cash flows dominate the conversation, do you think that's inherently at odds with people continuity? Like, like, you know, you have private equity firms that are approaching integration from the standpoint of that, they want entry, They want to roll up, expand, EBITDA expansion, and then in a short duration, exit out at a higher valuation multiple, right? Uh, so, and in most of these cases, when they come in, the partners are staying for the earnout, but the culture quietly walks out the door. The leadership alignment becomes a bridge on the breakpoint. So, what role do you see leadership playing in keeping both employees and clients engaged through the transition while this is happening?
Yeah, really engaged executives um, are consummate communicators. They start
Right?
communicating from day one, and they communicate on a regular basis, maybe every other week, every other week, with employees. And they lay out sort of, here's what we need to do in the next 6 months, but we're going to focus on month one. And here's what I've, instructed the heads of your departments to do, et cetera, right? And they do that. And then subsequent communication is, here's our progress, here's how well we're doing. Kudos to so and so for a great job last week or whatever, right? They're reinforcing um, and doing that on a regular basis. That's what
Right?
makes employees feel secure, because the moment employees feel insecure, they're going to start looking for another job.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's human nature. Um, you're going to get people that, oh my God, we got bought out. I got to get out of here. Right. Or we're buying another company. I'm going to lose my job. I got to get out of here. You have,
Yeah.
that's maybe 2-3%. They just
Yeah.
leave because there's a merger, right?
Yeah.
Or an acquisition. Um, but the senior execs need to be consummate communicators. They need to have a good plan that translates to the lower levels in the organization, so that tactically they know what they need to do and when they need to get it done by. And
Yeah.
there's constant communication on that plan. Um,
Oh,
you
yeah.
rarely see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You rarely see it.
Now, from a communication standpoint,
Yeah.
especially as a target company, if I'm going to be merging into a larger company, eventually I'll need to start communicating with my employees and my clients at one point of time when the things are happening. So, when should firms actually start communicating with employees and clients? Should it be before the ink dries or after the dust settles?
A lot of times you literally have to wait till the contract's signed. You
Uh-huh.
can't necessarily, you could talk about what needs to get done internally with your company, but you can't start communicating with the target company till after the papers are signed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's day one is
Yeah.
is is when you would start. Um, and not wait. Don't wait. Have a plan and start communicating that plan, and appoint executive team leaders from both companies to head up, right? Don't
All
just
right.
put all your people in there and let the target company executives, take orders, right? Because what are they going
Mhm.
to do? They're going to feel insecure and they're going to start looking for another job, right?
No, no,
Everybody
that's a
wants to know what's in it
yeah.
for me.
True. I mean, and that's a good
Yeah.
point, because we often assume that, no news is good news, but silence breeds rumors faster than the
When it
snake
comes to
threats.
M&A, all news needs to be good news. You can't not say anything and think that people are going to view it in a positive way. They're not.
Now, all right.
They're
So now
not.
talking about that, like what are some common mistakes that you see firms make in the post-acquisition messaging?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. Let's assume that they do communicate, right? Because not
Mm-hmm.
communicating would be the first mistake. But let's say that they do communicate. You got to have a plan. You got to roll it out,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to make sure that you're involving everybody from both companies. When you don't do that, that's the first mistake you're going to make, and it will it'll snowball into other mistakes. It'll create other mistakes that'll start showing up. Beyond having a plan and communicating it, it's this sounds simplistic, but what are you measuring?
Yeah.
Um, are you going to measure anything, and what is it, right?
Yeah.
And is it just going to be the financial stuff? That's important, but you've got to measure beyond that. So what are those measurements? I would encourage measuring retention,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
That's where your HR people really need to have a plan on how we're going to retain everybody.
All right.
The other thing is, and this is very, very important. If you think about M&A, what happens? Well, you have one of each. You have two of everything, and you don't need two of everything.
Yeah.
However, in some cases, because you're now going to be bigger, you could take two of the same departments and combine them because you're going to need the headcount,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So know what departments they are. In other cases, you know you're going to cut back in one area, but you're going to grow an entirely new area. For example, that pharma company, um, customer service needed to almost triple in size after the acquisition.
Oh.
Okay, so you could take people from one department and retrain them and upskill them and put them in customer service, right? So you could roll out here's what we're going to do. Nobody's going to lose their job, but you may get another job in the company. And here's some of the areas that we need to grow. And you should start thinking about if you want to work in these departments, we're going to give you full training and bring you up to speed so you can perform at your regular level of performance that you were doing in your previous group. And so that
Makes
gives people, okay, well then I'm not going to lose my job. I'm going to lose the job I did before, but I'm going to get another job, right? And so that's a big deal. And so
it
not
is.
thinking through that, that gets missed a lot, a lot. And it's not just a headcount reduction exercise. I know private equity has a sort of a bad reputation for that, where they just go in and cut, and right. But you're buying the company to grow, and in order to grow, you need to plan for the future, right? And so, what are you going to need? And you should
Yeah.
know what that is.
All right. Okay. And now, I gather that your book is coming out, right? So tell me about it. What
Yeah,
inspired it?
I
Right.
it's at the editor, and it changed from what I originally anticipated it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be really about M&A. There's a good M&A case study in there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really about skill sets and what do you really need for growth,
All
for
right.
skill sets, right? So um, a lot of what gets done is really is business process, right? So customer service is a process, supply chain is a process, order to cash is a process, um, hire to retire is a process. And so, what kind of skills do you need as an executive to do this kind of work? And so there's an M&A case study because you're buying a company to grow. There's a case study on product development and product expansion. There's another case study on a retailer going from in store to e-commerce and in store, so brick and mortar and internet. And what
All
does
right.
that look like? And what kind of skills do you need for that? And
Mm-hmm.
what would you do, right? If you were called to parachute in the middle of whatever, a crisis, and you parachute in, right? What skills do you need to like hit the ground running to do all this, right? For
Interesting.
those case studies.
Interesting.
Um, there's another one on risk management in banking, right? Where banks are highly regulated, and you get a lot of banks that pay millions and millions and millions in fines because they don't even have a risk management process.
Right.
Um, you saw the thing with Wells Fargo where they were opening up accounts for people
Accounts.
without
Yeah.
talking to them. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
mean,
was.
talk about risk management. So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, it's at the editor. We're gonna roll it out in another month or two,
All right.
and we'll see how it goes. There'll be webinars, probably some training courses, etc.
All
Yeah,
right.
probably some good speaking engagements at some of the conferences, etc.
Well,
So looking forward to it.
well, good luck with that, my friend. Because
Thank you.
I think what you're bringing into your book is, not just theory, but you're kind of bringing in practice because you bring in your experience. So, I pray that, it's going to help a lot of leaders. Uh, because, like, I think this all comes back to, like, honestly, most post-merger playbooks, they read like, like hope for the best and schedule the next schedule another meeting. But there are some skill sets that you need to have on board if you really
Yeah.
want to have a successful integration, right?
When I first started doing this, I had an M&A playbook. It was 80 pages of templates and whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute, every consulting firm out there has this, right?
Yeah.
McKinsey has it, BCG, E&Y, Deloitte, everybody's got it, right?
Yeah.
It was mine better than theirs. I don't know, and I don't care, right? So really what I thought was, and here's the other thing. They'll tell you they customize what they do to every client. They don't. They have their playbook. They go in, they set up, all the work streams for finance, HR, blah, blah, blah. And they do the same thing. And the interesting part of all that is 70% or slightly over 70% of all M&As fail within the
Yeah.
first 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
Why? Right? Why? And so I thought, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to say, what kind of skills do you need to be successful at this? And what
Yeah.
is M&A? Fundamentally, it's all about growth,
Yeah.
right? If you can't grow organically, you're going to go do M&A and grow inorganically, right? And so that was sort of how I approached it, and I think
Okay.
it's different.
Okay. I
Um,
agree.
and we'll see, right? We'll
Yeah.
see how the market accepts it.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, this has been a fantastic conversation. I
Oh,
think,
great talking to you. Yeah,
yeah, I think a lot of listeners will walk away realizing that integration isn't a phase; it's a leadership test, right? So
very much so.
yeah. So where can people connect with you or follow your work, Tony?
Sure. I would say LinkedIn,
All right.
for sure, be number one. I'm also president of the Association of BPM Professionals, which is process management. You could go to abpmp.org,
Okay.
find out more there.
Yeah.
And also the Business Architect Consortium, .org. I think it's
Okay.
businessarchitectconsortium.org, all one word.
Nice.
I started that group. So those are
Okay.
three places. LinkedIn's probably the easiest. Everybody's familiar with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll probably announce the book uh, on LinkedIn first.
All right.
So yeah,
All right. We'll look forward to that. Well, to all those people who are listening in, I will be sharing the links through which you can get in touch with Tony in the show notes as well, so you have that handy. And you know, uh, to everybody who's listening in, just remember that most deals fail not because of the numbers, but because of the narrative. So if you take care of the people and communicate clearly, the numbers tend to follow. So with that, I'm Saul, and this was Accounting M&A Insider. Until next time, keep your culture as strong as your cash flow. Take care.
Thank you.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now